Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hello Hosty podcast. Today I am joined by Andrew Ozigi of Homely, a property management company based in the southeast of England, predominantly in London as far as I'm aware. You started in London but you're beginning to spread today outside.
Yeah, that's correct. So started in London but then we're gradually spreading, trying to go national for now and then international.
To see where it grows from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. Should we start with you giving us a bit of an introduction to your story and how you found yourself in the place where you are today?
So I said Andrew Ozigi. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur and actually of an award-winning brand which is Homely. So we've won a couple of awards recently.
Which awards?
So Service Department Awards. I think there's another one for one of our corporate clients, our corporate Ultivita. So we won that as well. So we won a couple of that there, and then one with Service Department Awards. No, Service Department Awards and Ultivita. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we won a couple of awards, and yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Been a good one. Our model is slightly different. So we're more like an apart hotel model. So we've got a few blocks. So we only just have blocks basically rather than single apartments. I've got a few blocks around. Some of them in choice locations, like in central London. Like Shaftesbury, Avenue, and so on. So choice locations, and most of our operations so it's pretty much like an apartment hotel, and that's what we mainly do.
Okay. Yeah. So you only manage blocks.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, for now.
Awesome.
Yeah,
How did you come about getting into that?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. So I think when we originally started, so we started in about 2015 is when we started. It started when I moved out of a property. So myself and my wife, we got a new place. We're going to move out. We're going to rent it out, and the person we're going to rent it out to said, he wants us to guarantee the rent, and we should rent it out to him. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So if he wants to guarantee the rent, he's probably going to make you more money. So I thought, okay, can we do it differently then? I don't want any rent, just let us profit share. So he thought about it. We went back and forth a few times. I cut a long story short, he thought it wasn't going to work. It's best if we just do that ourselves. So that's what we did, and then we started to rent out on a short-term basis and realized we can make more.
So a profit share and an education.
Actually, no profit share, education, and then that's how we started, and then we just started to grow and scale from there. Learned lots of lessons along the way, and then we saw what worked, what didn't work. This was way back before you got a lot more popular. And that's how we started and scaled.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us about the first block that you got involved with. How did that deal come about? Where was it?
Yeah. So I think so we've been looking for blocks. It was quite difficult to find because what we were looking for was more of in the space of the likes of you get companies like Stay City and Rooms and some of those guys. Some of the bigger players in that space. Difficult to find. I think COVID for us provided a really big opportunity. COVID was brutal for a lot of people. It was, and it was hard. But I think straight after the first wave, there was blood on the streets. Basically, lots of people, lots of operations got wiped out. Lots of people got hit by COVID, unfortunately. But then at the same time, we saw the opportunity because what we had been looking for, difficult to find because you can find apartments, but you can barely find blocks. So we found that's when those blocks became available because some people had come bust, so people were running for the hills, and we just went on a shopping spree basically and started to snap up as much as we could during that period. And we also knew that at the same time it was quite risky because it was risky, because of the challenges. But from historic data, we knew the first wave, I think the Great Depression had a similar scenario, the Black Plague.
Right. Okay.
It came in waves, so we knew another wave was probably going to come.
Right.
So we drafted some really we were quite innovative with our contracts. So we were able to draft really good contracts that protected us during that period. So when the waves came, we were able to have discounted rents and have proper contracts in place, and we had good deals with the NHS, for example. So we worked with a couple of agencies that had provided accommodation to the NHS and corporate clients and construction as well who were working during that period. So we were able to ride it.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about the structure of your business. We spoke earlier about how it was important to build the right structure from the start. So in terms of the question I've really got is in terms of the structure with the property owners, how does that work?
Yeah, so the structure is so there's multiple structures. You can have like a management model where there's no liability and you are managing a property on behalf of somebody else. You can also have a guaranteed model where you are liable, where you're guaranteeing. You've got like a long-term lease. So it can be different. There's different types of leases. There's FRI leases. There's there's company lets and there's common law. We don't go into technicals, but depending on the type of lease, you can have the key headline models are either you have one where you are responsible and you are liable, or you will have one where you are managing on behalf of somebody else and there's less liability. Yeah. So we do a mix of both. Well, most of our stock is similar to I mean, there's also franchise models as well. There's various models, but where we have the block scenario, which is what we mainly do, is where we take on the responsibility of that block, which is similar to what you have in I think Whitbread, interestingly, they're one of the only guys left in terms of traditional hotels that build from scratch. Nowadays, what you mainly find is a lease model.
Yeah,
so either it's a lease or it's a franchise model. Because I did some work, because interestingly, in my background, I come from an IT background.
Okay.
So I'm an IT architect.
Okay.
So it's similar to an architect that you consult when you want to build a property. It's a similar thing for IT. So normally I would consult for consultancies. So they would normally put me off. They would normally pass me on to their clients. So I normally represent them for their clients and build out their IT architecture and infrastructure. So that's what I do. That's my background. So it's a similar thing when it comes to. I've applied a similar approach when it comes to property and using those same skills to leverage the business.
Sure. Okay. So in terms of your journey at the moment, you said that you've got a goal for the end of the year, which is to get from 50 to 100 properties. What do you see as your biggest bottleneck currently that would stand in the way of that?
I think bottleneck is so one of the things that we do very well. I talk about the tech part is we do a lot of tech, a lot of tech. To be honest, we try and automate as much as possible. So I think for us, it's automation. So we use automation where possible, and it's not just automation, but it's also the integration as well. So we use a lot, really good tech tools, and then we also not just use them, but it's how we integrate them. So it's not just about your tech stack; it's how you stack it.
How it all comes together.
So that's what we do a lot. So based on that, it means we're very efficient. It means you increases your operational efficiency. What that also means is that you're able to do a lot more with very little. So based on the resources you have, based on the teams you have, you can automate a lot. So right now the setup that we currently have means that we get booking literally off the back of a booking. If we wanted to, there's literally no interaction with that customer or with the guest until they came in. So everything is automated right from the guest experience to the guidebooks to the access codes. So everything is fully automated. Guest gets automation, a link after the book, and security deposits, and everything gets captured, and the access codes go straight to the apartment, to the door. We hit the door. Entry code expires when you check out, all the messaging. We literally fully automated. But sometimes we put a stop in there because at the end of the day we're dealing with humans and there needs to be some sort of guest experience. So we do manage and monitor the system. So we can do that. But then some things that we can't do is at the end of the day, no matter how much you automate, you can't automate cleaning. You can't automate maintenance.
I think Turner tried. Maintenance.
Maintenance, cleaning. You need hands. You need people. You need humans to actually get down and get. So some stuff you can't do. So maintenance is normally quite a big one because you're going to have turnover. Stuff get damaged. There'll be requests. There'll be this. There'll be that. So
and that's quite a reactive thing as well.
So we do. I mean, it's split to reactive and proactive. So some stuff we do proactively, which reduces the reactive implications, but some stuff you still need to react to as well. So there's going to be that. I think that's probably the biggest bottleneck. So I'm trying to get a maintenance person on a full-time employment.
Right. Okay.
It's going to they make more money.
I'm in a WhatsApp group yesterday I saw somebody posting saying we need to hire, and this conversation I've heard it so many times come up in groups. We need to hire somebody that we can all share, and it never seems to come to fruition because it's a tough thing to get right. And we've got in our network we've got a we call it the little black book, and in that book, which is basically just a Google sheet, but everybody just contributes and puts in tradespeople that we know, that are competent, don't overcharge. But it's a tough one to. It's a tough nut to crack.
Depending on the number of units, depending on the scale, you obviously it's a business or HR type question in terms of at what point do you hire and how much do you hire to handle the capacity. So it's something you're constantly evaluating, but at some point you realize that you're probably paying more to multiple tradesmen depending on how your dependent frequency of occurrence of issues. So you might want to then move towards getting something that's more guaranteed or permanent. So that way you're paying less, because there's even just practice stuff like paint touch-ups. So there's just quite a lot that happens, but automation is great unless there's a way to automate robots or something to do that. So
I think staff is the only way that you can automate it. As an individual, you can bring on more staff that could help with that process, but staff are expensive.
So you can be as efficient as possible, which would help a lot. But there's some things that efficiency. You can be efficient with it, but at the end of the day, some stuff you still need people. So if you're going to scale, then it's not just getting the units, but you also need to get people to actually do it. Because cleaning and maintenance are normally quite, for us, it's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I see. It's interesting because I feel that one of the biggest hurdles that most small business entrepreneurs that find hard to overcome is is getting bogged down with the running of the business. So if you can manage to automate, systemize, to build systems that help you scale, you can grow a lot faster. And it sounds like you seem to have done that really quite well.
Yeah, and that's what you do with. I mean, and when it comes to scale, because that's what the big guys do. When I mean the big guys, I said my background is I do a lot of work for consultancies, and it's all about that automation and scale and tech and putting systems in place and having principles and structures and that is what then would enable that scale. So that way you can scale, but you already have this structure in place. So similar to the mistake we're talking about, where you asked me a question earlier on about what that.
Well, maybe I'll ask you that question now for the camera. So if you could start over again, what advice would you give your past self?
I think it's structure. I think making sure you've got the right structures in place. And once you have that in place, then it makes it a lot easier.
Structure in regards to...
So I think structure in terms of depending on where you're trying to take your business, depending on your business goals or your plans or your vision, structure in terms of even down from company setup, what type of company do you want? Do you need to set up a limited company? But that then depends on, are you trying to scale to, do you need a management company, or do you need a company that's going to take on leases or rents?
How would somebody watching this or listening, how would somebody make that decision?
Good question. So I think it's kind of starts with your objective, like, what do you want from it? What are you trying to achieve? I think that's the first thing to kind of think about, what you're trying to achieve from it. And then based on that, that's what would then drive, if you just want, for example, if someone who just has a single property, doesn't really care, he's going to be less than the VAT threshold. So that might make you take a certain route. But then if you got somebody else who doesn't want to take any risk, he wants to manage properties for people, but then you act as an intermediary, you're not taking on the liability, then business model will be different. If you want to take on a bit more risk, which might come with a bit more reward, and you want to take on liability, if you want the leases, you do a different model of franchise, depending on what it is, then you've also got a different structure. So that way you might have a separate limited company. You might want to be on TOMS, for example.
TOMS is the acronym for...
It stands for, it's the Tour Operator Margin Scheme. So it's the scheme that you typically would have, where if you were running it's common with like rent to rent, for example, where you're acting as that model is similar to what you have as a tour operator or as a tour guide. So in other words, your turnover, your bookings or your turnover or your income, it's not applicable. So the VAT does not apply. That is not really your income. Your real income is the margin between.
It's your profit.
Yeah, exactly. Not really your profit. It's the margin between what you take on on what you're paying for the supply and the actual supply itself. So there's there's some of these accounting terminology that it can get complex, but it gets broken down into 0 to 28 days. So you had someone from 0 to 28 days, and that falls inside of TOMS. Then anything above that falls outside of TOMS. VAT gets calculated differently for each tier, and then when you get to a particular threshold, then VAT then drops. So it depends on it gets complex. But overall, it means your VAT liability is a lot less. So rather than paying it at the top level on what you're paying VAT on the difference, and that's the key. So you can't claim the VAT back on certain items, like you're saying costs that fall within the supply. But anything outside the supply, then you can't claim VAT on. So it gets complex, and you need an accountant to understand.
Yeah, so maybe there should be a disclaimer in there. Neither of us are tax advisors.
I'm not a tax advisor.
Okay. However, it's a scheme that can help reduce your tax liability. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. And so, if you have any, do you have any tips, tricks, or hacks that you would recommend to other property managers?
I'd say if you're going to do it at scale, then I think for me it's all about automation, automation, and that's what we do quite well. Just trying to see just think that mindset. Okay, for everything you're doing, is there a system behind this? How can I automate this? How can I do this remotely? Because if you're going to manage your properties, you're talking about different locations. You might have a block like Gossip, for example, that might make it a little bit easier because logistically it's just one location and you have multiple units. But if you don't have situations where you have multiple units all over the place, then you want to be as efficient as possible and think of what you can automate. It could be down to things like doing a restart of the Wi-Fi system, or it could be access control. So you're not using keys and using a door system. So for us, we have an IoT strategy. IoT meaning Internet of Things, and so this refers to. So if there's this thing I put online. I'll probably share it. If you probably follow me, you'll find on social media. So it's like an architecture. So that's what I do for when I consult. Sure. It's like an architecture and more like a recommendation for the different parts, the different moving parts of your business, and how you can sort of how they also connect together. And things to think about depending on the scale of the business. So looking at that, so we have an IT strategy that also includes things like. Access control. So we have within the property sort of management element of it, we have things like even down to security systems. So right, whether it's your CCTV systems for your communal sort of buildings, not inside the flats, not inside the properties, but you're coming for the externals, for the buildings. Whether it's the things like the non-intrusive GDPR compliant systems, like there's a few of them out there. A few devices, a few devices that you can decibel monitors and so on. You can put indoors. Some of those need to integrate with your PMS systems. You have, there's quite even Wi-Fi systems that you can remotely monitor. You can see the speed, you can test the speed, you can restart it. So there's quite a few things that you can install and implement. So it just minimizes you having to physically go down to make sure things work. Yeah.
So it basically feeds back to the same point of automation, systemization, so you can scale. There was a great expression. An expression I heard that I really like is the idea of working on the business and not in the business, because you see it so many times that people are so busy, bogged down in the day-to-day operation of their business, they don't step back with a macro view. Look at the business as an overall and work on the business so that it can automate and run itself.
Definitely. I mean, that's a very good point because we so in terms of running the business, so we've got a team because you can't do it alone. You need a team. So my team mainly make sure the business is running while I try and focus on business development and looking at how to scale, or maybe get involved when it comes to maybe tech restructures just because of my background. But when it comes to the system, I think that the team are more like babysitters, to be honest.
They just monitor and
exactly. They literally just babysitting the system. So do not get involved, just letting everything run. I just make sure everything's running smoothly. So rather than getting too involved, yes, there will be operations involved. There will be coordination, and you need to understand all the moving parts to make sure everything's working. But it's less to stop. I mean, you guys are Hello Hosty. You guys are something similar, right, in terms of AI, where you're able to automatically message. So
our product was born of the necessity to constantly be available for guests. We're property managers as well, and being able to automate certain communications which are emergencies. They're mini emergencies. A guest is outside a property and they're fumbling the keys. They don't know how to get in. Our system can help overcome that challenge, whether it's the middle of the night or the middle of the day. Really, I think team are key in our business for growth, for providing a good guest experience, but team coupled with technology. So in your team, can we talk a bit about your team? Like what kind of roles are they doing, and how many people are you?
Yeah, so roles wise, so we so I think obviously we have it's a mixture. So we've got, I think one of the key roles for us is so there's the operations team. So we've got like an operations manager, and then we've got a couple of guys within the team that message and get in touch with guests, and we've got this stuff like PMS settings and some of the OTA settings that you need to work with.
Are they UK based, your team?
Yeah, mixture. So we got a mixture. So we offer a blended sort of model. So we've got a team who are international. We've got some team in nearshore in Europe. We've actually got somebody in the US. So we do that sort of follow the clock model.
So you got the clock, yeah.
Yeah, follow the clock, exactly. It's something you find in consultancies. You've got follow the clock model. We also have an onshore, on-site UK based team as well too. So that way, so stuff like property management, you need someone making sure everything is running. So we've got full-time property manager who making sure that there's going to be, so the cleaners are doing what they need to do, the maintenance. It's mainly from a maintenance perspective, structural stuff. We're in compliance. Yeah. We've got someone who's looking after compliance as well, to just making sure, because compliance is a big one, especially us being in London. So making sure your compliance wise, stuff, all your checks, your certs, all of that stuff is in place. Making sure from a regulatory perspective, you're ticking all the boxes. But so I think there's a lot more. There's quite a few things that are needed operationally that we have someone on site for. But all the messaging and the guest communication, our team offshore normally handle that. But at the same time, it's a system. It's also system driven, so it's also automated as well. So basically, rather than trying to message guests directly, we're monitoring the systems that are doing it.
Sure.
And then yes, we will get involved and we will make sure things run smoothly, checking out payments. We do finance, we do bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is going to be a big one, depending on what model you go for. So we got our team doing so the more important stuff like bookkeeping and finance and data analytics as well, to do a lot of data analysis. So we do a lot of that instead, rather than trying to get too involved in the operations, and we just allow the system just run. But yes, we will monitor, we will get involved where required.
It sounds like you're approaching it the right way, monitoring, setting it up and then monitoring. Optimizing. Okay, so if people would like to find out more about you or about Homely, how would they do that?
They can go onto our website, Homely, which is home.ly. So it's actually it's literally just home.ly.
I saw that and I thought that's a pretty good domain. It's quite easy to remember. Home.ly.
Exactly. So rather than going for the .coms, and it's just home.ly. We do training, we do mentoring and mentoring and education as well too. So it's something we're starting out to do recently. So that's going to be.
Do you have a lot of resources on your website?
That's coming soon. So we're going to be doing. I think it's due to popular demand, because most of the time we've just been focused and people are like, you guys are doing well. Why do you share your success? Or why don't you teach people and get people into let a lot more people know? So it's something we're going to start to do a lot more. So we will start to share that. Or just me personally, I share a lot of free stuff online. So
what's your Instagram?
Just Andrew Ozigi, so ANDREW and then OZIGI. So just Andrew Ozigi on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm a lot more on LinkedIn, to be honest.
I see you're very active on LinkedIn.
So LinkedIn, Facebook. So I will share free content, stuff that people can just take their tips and hacks that people can use and make use of.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining me.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
All right.